mean, Jeffrey Dahmer, if you remember his card, right before he was killed by another prisoner, thank God, he was fetching...
6 days a week, New Yorkers tune into the Curtis and Kuby show. They hear the liberal views of lawyer Ron Kuby clash with one of the city's most prominent right-wing thinkers. He is Curtis Sliwa, but it isn't as a talk show host that he made a name for himself. In 1979, Sliwa founded the Alliance of Guardian Angels in New York City, an organization dedicated to fighting crime in his hometown.
Well, 20 years ago in New York City, it was a seething cesspool of criminal activity. And the criminals would take the streets and take the communities like zombies in Dawn of the Dead, roaming about, crack-crazed cretins with chromosome damage, committing violence against one another, committing violence on anyone who would literally dare cross their path. I mean, Uzi-toting, dope-sucking, psychopathic killing machines.
I should be up front at all times.
Wearing distinctive red berets and white T-shirts, the Guardian Angels hit the streets and subways to shield vulnerable citizens from the city's muggers, rapists, and murderers. These self-appointed peacekeepers used code names to mask their identities. Their weapons were hard muscle, intimidation, and everyone's right to make a citizen's arrest. They would physically restrain suspects until the police arrived. But the NYPD wasn't always appreciative.
I do believe first and foremost that the security of the people who are of the subway was the responsibility of the transit police.
Lieutenant Medina had the subway beat in the early 1980s when the Angels were at their height.
That was our responsibility to protect the people that rode on the subway.
Pastor Dale Hansen has a church in the heart of Times Square and has supported the Angels since the beginning. He used to bail them out of jail.
Lamentably, in the beginning, the cops did not perceive what the Angels were doing as something positive, and consequently a lot of them spent their time harassing the Angels or actually arresting them and charging them with violating the civil rights of hookers and junkies.
The biggest impediment to organizing 20 years ago were the people I least expected to be adversaries, the police. Their position was, this is too good to be true. This has got to be some kind of scam.
To make matters worse for Sliwa, Mayor Ed Koch was not a fan of the Angels either. But the press and the public were split. New York City reporter Gabe Pressman remembers the Angels from the early days.
But early on, I think there was general suspicion among the press, members of the press, and politicians or city officials as well, that this was a group of vigilantes.
We were never a vigilante group or anything that they tried to perceive us as in the media. We just wanted to be out there and help people. And we did a pretty good job cleaning up Restaurant Row, cleaning up Times Square.
KC is one present-day member who was inspired by them as a young girl.
They were very visible. They made me, my mother, my whole family feel safe whenever we were on the trains. And the trains back then were pretty bad.
Part of the reason they stood out was that the Angels didn't look like traditional crime fighters, and they weren't.
The initial recruits to the Guardian Angels would have probably been graduates of Rikers Island. Would easily have become Savage Nomads, Savage Skulls, Black Spades. These were infamous street gangs. So the initial recruits were rougher, coarser, less skills to verbally communicate, less to work with.
They were tough kids from tough parts of the city who were no strangers to violence. They looked awesome and fearsome. They had earrings and berets with all sorts of medals and things on them. They nevertheless were people that I was thrilled were on our side and not on the side of the others.
Because most of the early Angels were unlikely guardians, some people were skeptical.
As a young boy, I was recruited by the Guardian Angels. And my father I wanted to join, and my father didn't let me. I think the perception of them coming out of Rikers Island, my father being a law enforcement officer himself, he didn't want me involved with people he felt might be criminals.
But it was the criminals that the Angels were after, and the subway was where they went looking for them. They nicknamed this number 4 train the Mugger Mover. Historically, the subway has been a barometer for the city when it comes to crime.
I'd say up to about 1990, in the subways in particular, people were scared on the subways. There was a lot of graffiti. The aura of the subways was that, the police were not in charge.
The subway has changed a lot in 20 years, and New York City has followed suit. Last year, the FBI ranked New York as the third safest among the nation's largest cities. Supporters of current Mayor Rudolph Giuliani are quick to point out that this dramatic turnaround has coincided with his administration.
There's no question the mayor is first and foremost, and the police, in taking back the streets. But who showed you could take back the subways? Who showed that you could make a difference? We were the ones who sort of led the way.
There were terrible problems, and the police would do nothing to help us, no matter how much we explained the problem, how much we asked, how much we...
Dr. Judith Lee owns a home on Restaurant Row, a once troubled neighborhood in Times Square.
And the only people who came and did anything was the Guardian Angels. And they came, they did what they needed to do. The crack was gone, the prostitution was gone. It changed the block.
As the sun sets over a safer New York City, the role of the Guardian Angels is not what it once was. Their numbers have dwindled. Their visibility has gone down. Their once apparent need for protection gone away. But Sliwa and other angels believe that the role has not diminished. It has simply changed.
The change in 20 years is dramatic. One could compare it. In 1979, the body had terminal cancer, and we were just slashing. We were a surgeon. Now we're more like vitamin C that one takes to prevent the sniffles from becoming a cold.
But the medicine that the Guardian Angels prescribe is not as noticeable as it once was.
To be honest, this is the first time I've seen a Guardian Angel in New York. I've been here for about 3 years, and I don't often see them here.
Sliwa concedes that membership is down, but says that's not the only reason New Yorkers don't see angels as much.
You're going to be very visible if you're riding the subways morning, noon, and night, as opposed if I'm isolated in a particular area or if I'm dealing with a specific project or a specific program. We're no longer going to be everywhere all at once because that's not what we're being asked to do.
Today's angels are meeting the needs of a safer but still troubled New York City.
We've become literally the #1 educational volunteer and safety organization on the internet simply because there was a void.
Besides patrolling the internet through cyber angels, they've developed other offshoot programs, including Urban Angels and Angel Watch. Urban Angels targets troubled teenagers in local high schools. Bruni Pabon's 9th grade class sees the Urban Angels once a week.
For this particular group, it was really, the Urban Angels were a godsend because they have very poor communication skills, very poor social interaction skills.
Besides involving students in community service, the Angels have other positive influences.
They've toned down in terms of language. There's less profanity. They're much more polite to one another. There's a thoughtfulness of each other that wasn't there before.
Central Park is another arena where the Angels are making an impact with Angel Watch.
Been informed by NYPD, a couple of trouble spots in the park.
Serving as an extra pair of eyes and ears for the police, Angel Watch volunteers patrol the over 800 acres of park on bike and foot.
It's Sunday. There's going to be a lot of people out there today, a lot of bladers hot dogging and crashing into one another.
Rather than change any of our core operations, we've added in programs specifically designed toward helping out individual areas of the community, like the Angel Watch patrols.
Their duties include everything from reporting suspicious activity to assisting parkgoers.
I figured they patrol the park. If anybody would know and be able to lead me in the right direction, they would. You see, she pulled the map out. She was able to tell me exactly where to go. I figured that was the safest person to ask.
Volunteers in these offshoot programs don't have to be Guardian Angels to participate, but many of them do go on to wear the beret.
Angel Watch actually was the opportunity that brought me into the Angels, so this is my my mother program, so to speak. They got me here.
Recruitment is now a priority for the Guardian Angels. Unlike 20 years ago when the focus of patrolling was crime prevention, today's patrols are spent recruiting new members. All new recruits go through a mandatory 3-month training program combining various forms of the martial arts with verbal and communication instruction. But despite these changes, many of the old traditions live on. They still have code names.
Rico.
Ice.
Cricket.
Enigma.
Equalizer.
They still search one another for weapons and drugs before patrols. They still honor angels who die in the line of duty. But perhaps the most significant trait that angels of the past and present share is the desire to change things for the better.
Well, I like what it stands for. The fact that, you could go out in the street and work as a team. In today's world, it's hard. You don't see that many groups doing that, and we do it volunteer. So, kids really look up to us, and if it's one person we can make a difference for, that counts a lot for us.
I wanted to help people because many times when I was young, I witnessed the mugging that my mother went through when I was about 6 or 7, and after that, I didn't like the way the system was working.
Some citizens agree and still like it when a guardian angel gets on their train.
The subways are unsafe. People coming and going to work late in the evening, Oh, they need someone to patrol it. It's a positive organization. They haven't hurt anybody.
And meet Jason Berg from Utah. It's his first trip to New York City, and
I've already been mugged, so
Sliwa knows there's still problems, but says today it's more like a Cold War.
Before I was the general in a wartime situation in which you were in the front lines and constantly having to fight off your adversaries. Now it's a peacetime general that I am.
This year, as the Guardian Angels celebrate their 20th anniversary, they now have the official support of the police department and the mayor. While their leader has a new outlet for his controversial rhetoric, the Angels themselves are no longer grabbing headlines like they once did.
After 20 years, that's sort of like a point where people realize you've been around a long time, and you're not in it just because it's a fad.